All right, so where do you see the thermometer on this situation?
Well, unfortunately, it's going to get red hot. You know, what's happening right now in the banking system is a direct consequence of bad monetary and fiscal policy. The government and the Federal Reserve caused the 2008 financial crisis. They have caused this 2023 greater financial crisis. Thanks to the government, the entire U.S. banking system is a house of cards. The majority of U.S. banks are insolvent. And because they're all going to get bailed out, and the U.S. government, every bank account is going to be eviscerated by inflation. The Fed is going to print trillions of dollars to bail out the banks and the government, and that means every one of your listeners is going to see the value of their savings collapse as prices go through the roof.
One thing, two things. First of all, I thought they had new capital requirements after 2008 to keep banks more solvent.
No, that regulation didn't do anything. You know, they tried to close the barn doors well after the horses had left. The problem wasn't a lack of regulation. It was an excessive amount of regulation that prevented the free market from working, and there was tremendous moral hazard. You know, and by the way, U.S. banking regulations encouraged banks to load up on government debt, mortgage-backed securities, and the Federal Reserve gave them no choice by keeping interest rates at zero for over a decade.
The second thing is, when we say, oh, they're going to bail them out, I feel like people have been playing politics, trying to blame Democrats for using taxpayer dollars to bail out their buddies. That's not really a fair assessment of the FDIC. Banks pay into that. Now, you can say, oh, but they'll pass it along. But by that definition, Pete, anytime a corporation is fined in any way, then it's going to be taxpayer dollars at some point because everything gets passed along. I mean, is that a fair criticism that they're bailing out this situation?
Well, of course, it's a massive bailout. And, you know, we shouldn't even have an FDIC. We had a much sounder banking system before we got the FDIC during the New Deal. But now it's a much bigger moral hazard than ever before. And sure, the cost of deposit insurance is borne by the customers of the bank. It's passed on like any cost. But the real damage is the moral hazard that it does, because Americans don't give a damn about the risks that the banks take. They just put their money anywhere because it's all guaranteed by the government. What we need is a free market to ensure that the banking system is sound. But thanks to the government, it is completely unsound. As I said, it's a house of cards. It's a leveraged mess. The whole thing is going to implode. But what's going to happen is the Fed is going to bail out the entire system. And so you're not going to lose your money. The bank is going to have your money. The problem is your money is going to lose its value. So you can get your money out of the bank, but you won't be able to buy anything with it.
So last question. One, is there an unless? You know, and based on what your answer is to that, what are people supposed to do?
Well, if most people don't leave much money in the bank, I mean, take it out, buy yourself some gold, silver, do something. But you're going to lose dramatically if you have cash. If you have a deposit in a bank, it doesn't matter if the government insures it or not. They don't insure you against inflation. In fact, they have to create inflation to bail out everybody else. But at this point, you know, it's too late to do the right thing. I mean, they should have done the right thing 20 years ago, 12 years ago. I don't see any precedent in the U.S. government doing the right thing. Every time they get a chance, they do the wrong thing, and that includes the Federal Reserve. So you've got to protect yourself from this incompetence. I mean, the majority of Americans, as I said, are going to get wiped out by inflation. Now, the government is going to try to blame inflation on the private sector, on the greedy businessmen who are jacking up their prices, or they try blaming it on Putin. But the sole source of all inflation is the U.S. government. It's the government that spends the money and the Federal Reserve that prints it. These massive deficits that we have under Biden, but we had them under Trump, we had them under Obama, all of these deficits are the source of inflation. You don't get anything for free for the government. All government spending has to be paid for. And if you don't pay for it through taxation, you're going to pay for it through inflation. Higher prices are a tax. And every American has had a huge tax increase under the Biden administration, whether he admits it or not.
It's been going on for a while, and we have to keep an eye on this. And that's why I'm trying to cover it regularly, because the sooner they intervene and the sooner we get new standards, the better we'll be. Peter Schiff, sober assessment, but appreciated. Thank you, Pete.